I'm Firefighter Tom Pullman, Engine 20, Unit 3. Today we're going to be going over the E1 ladder. The first thing we need to do is tilt the cab. To get that accomplished, we need to set the outriggers and raise the aerial. To start that process, we need to start the engine and engage the PTO. To tilt the cab, you're still going to need the ignition power on. Cab tilt switch. Always make sure your cab safety is locked into place. At this point, you want to lower the cab down to place the weight of the cab on the safety to make sure that it's sound, and then take some of the weight back off. Now you can shut the ignition off. After you tilt the cab, some things to note. The cab latches. The cab latches latch with the absence of pressure. When you raise the cab, the pressure that's used to raise the cab unlatches those latches. You have oil dipstick, 1540. Transmission dipstick and fill, takes Dextron 4, full synthetic, and then this is your oil fill. You have 2 heat valves on this apparatus. Open in the winter to get heat, closed in the summer so your air conditioning will work. The batteries on these, you just want to check the connections. Make sure they're tight. If they have any corrosion on them, it can easily be cleaned with some baking soda and water or some Coca-Cola. Our batteries are maintenance free. If you have a battery problem, it's just going to get replaced. We don't need to add fluids to the battery ever. You have access when the cab is down to both batteries and to all your fill points and dipsticks from the inside of the apparatus. When the cab is up, visually inspect your belts for any cracks or frays. Take a look at the fan blade tips. There's several points that can come loose between the radiator, the fan shroud, and where the fan attaches to the front of the engine. If we catch it soon enough, we can keep that fan from exploding and blowing through the radiator. If you notice that the tips of the fan are getting chewed up, give the garage a call. The Vogel Auto Lube, these are the manifolds. It's fed from a system in the back that I will show you shortly. The tubes That's what they look like. On the officer's side in the dashboard, that's where your fuses and relays are located. There's a schematic on the back of the officer's visor. If you go around to the other side, for fluids for this apparatus, we showed you the oil and the transmission fluid. There's no power steering reservoir on an E1 truck. It shares the hydraulic system with the aerial, and it also is shared with the cab jacks. With the Vogel Auto Lube, here's another set of manifolds, and that's what they look like when they're leaking. Grease points on this. The Vogel Auto Lube covers about 90% of the apparatus. It does not cover the outriggers. It does not cover the aerial. And it does not cover anything that rotates 360 degrees, like your steering shaft. The grease points on that are any of the knuckles, and there's actually a grease fitting on the back side right here. This joint telescopes. It's basically a smaller version of what your drive shafts are going to look like underneath. You'll have the same grease points in the same places. Some more of the Vogel Auto Lube lines. When checking underneath, take a look at your spring shackles, the keepers, the spring itself, the U-bolts. You're looking for missing nuts, the bolts, the keepers, or any cracks in the springs or the U-bolts. The brakes on this apparatus are covered in the engine portion, so we're just going to go straight to tires. Tread depth, you can get a tread depth gauge from stores. They have them available. The front axle on these apparatuses actually has a fill. If you notice that this fill is low and you do not see any fluid on the outside, my advice is to call the garage, because it can leak fluid on the backside and cover your brakes. When checking the lug nuts on the apparatus, we have all these arrows put in. With a flashlight in about 30 seconds, it's a real quick check. If you notice that one of the arrows isn't like the rest, put your hands on it. You can reference the paint mark from the nut to the rim. If you still don't feel comfortable about it, give the garage a call. They'll come out and retorque that wheel for you. On the officer's side, I showed you the cab latch. This is your cab ajar switch. There's only one. So you could have a problem with the cab latch on the officer's side and not have a light. That doesn't mean you don't have a problem. You don't have to have a light to have a malfunctioning cab latch. The hydraulic compartment has your hydraulic tank, and like I said before, that's also your power steering and your cab lift cylinder. The electric motor and pump for your cab lift. That is your dipstick for your hydraulic fluid. Your Vogel Auto Lube is located in here as well. It does have a minimum mark on the case. To raise and lower the cab, you also have the switch here. To lower the cab, you raise it up, you pull the safety out of the way, and then lower the cab. This setup is to manually raise or lower the cab. In some instances, the solenoid that lowers the cab malfunction and will not work. You can still lower the cab by using the bleeder here. The handle is located in the driver's compartment. Other grease points on this apparatus would be your outriggers. On the aerial, you have grease fittings on both ends of your hydraulic rams and at any of the pulleys. There's also a grease fitting on the turn plate to grease the turn plate as well.